The Galactic Festival Authority credits humans with teaching aliens how to have fun. Part 1. Senior Festival Compliance Officer had inspected festivals on 412 worlds. She had reviewed celebrations for the methane breathers of Titan 7, the Silicon Collective of Andromeda Station, and even the notoriously difficult plasma dancers of the Helix Nebula. In 3 centuries of service to the Galactic Festival Authority, she had never filed a report recommending immediate intervention. Until she visited Earth. The assignment had seemed routine. Earth was a newly contacted world, barely 5 years into galactic membership. The humans had submitted their application to join the GFA, as all species eventually did. The Galactic Festival Authority oversaw all celebrations, parties, and recreational gatherings for the 847 member species of the Galactic Council. It was an important role. Festivals maintained social bonds, reduced conflict, and provided necessary psychological relief for sentient beings across the galaxy. Species, though, took festivals very seriously. Every celebration followed precise protocols established over thousands of years. There were proper times for merriment, designated areas for social bonding, and carefully measured amounts of recreational substances. They had perfected the science of celebration. When they joined the GFA 2,000 years ago, they had brought this expertise to the galaxy. Now, as her ship entered Earth's atmosphere, reviewed the documentation humans had submitted, it made no sense. The humans claimed to have thousands of different festivals. That alone was suspicious. Most species had between 5 and 20 official celebrations per year. Thousands was absurd. It suggested either a calculation error or a fundamental misunderstanding of what qualified as a festival. The ship landed in a city called, had scheduled her visit to coincide with something humans called Carnival. According to their documentation, this was one of their major festivals. She expected something similar to the Spring Alignment Ceremony, where citizens gathered in orderly groups to appreciate the changing season through approved artistic performances. What she found instead was madness. Millions of humans filled the streets. They wore costumes that served no practical purpose, some barely wearing anything at all. Music blasted from every direction, multiple songs overlapping in acoustic chaos. Humans danced with no formation, no pattern, no coordination. They jumped and spun and moved their bodies in ways that looked dangerously close to physical injury. Pushed through the crowd, her scanning device recording everything. Where was the Central Coordination Committee? Where were the designated celebration zones? Where were the safety monitors? She stopped a human woman wearing an elaborate costume covered in bright feathers and sparkling stones. "Excuse me," said through her translator. "I need to speak with whoever is in charge of this festival." The woman laughed, a sound that was loud and unrestrained. "In charge? Honey, nobody's in charge, that's the whole point." This had to be wrong. Moved deeper into the celebration, searching for some sign of organization. Instead, she found only more chaos. Humans of all ages mixed together with no age-appropriate separation. They consumed alcohol in quantities that would concern any medical professional. They hugged strangers, shouted at the top of their lungs, and seemed completely unconcerned with maintaining proper social distance. And they were smiling, all of them, genuinely, openly smiling. Had attended 4,216 festivals in her career. She had seen beings express satisfaction at well-executed celebrations. She had observed contentment at properly concluded ceremonies. But this was different. These humans appeared to be experiencing something else entirely. After 6 hours of observation, returned to her ship. She immediately began drafting her report, but something made her pause. The Galactic Festival Authority required comprehensive assessment. One festival was not enough data. She pulled up the human festival calendar. What she saw made her manipulation appendages tremble. The humans had a festival somewhere on their planet almost every single day of their year. Not just major festivals, but small ones, local ones, celebrations for reasons that seemed completely arbitrary. They had festivals for food items, festivals for seasons, festivals for religious reasons, historical events, and sometimes for no documented reason at all. Over the next 3 months, visited 17 more human festivals. She went to Oktoberfest in Germany, where humans gathered in massive tents to drink beer and sing songs that nobody had approved or reviewed for cultural sensitivity. She visited Diwali in India, where humans lit millions of small fires for reasons that seemed more aesthetic than practical. She attended the Burning Man festival in the desert, where humans built elaborate art installations for the sole purpose of setting them on fire. Each festival was different. Each one broke dozens of GFA regulations, and at each one, humans were having what they called fun. Learn that word slowly. Fun did not translate well into. The closest equivalent was optimal recreational satisfaction, but that failed to capture something essential about what humans meant. Fun was messy. Fun was unpredictable. Fun was exactly the opposite of everything the Galactic Festival Authority stood for. After completing her assessment tour, sat in her ship and reviewed all the footage she had collected. She watched humans dance badly and laugh at their own mistakes. She watched them eat food that dripped and spilled, wearing it as badges of honor. She watched them hug friends and strangers alike, share drinks from the same containers, and sing together even when they did not know all the words. She thought about the last festival she had attended before this assignment. It had been the annual efficiency celebration, commemorating another year of optimal productivity. Everyone had gathered at the appointed time, consumed the recommended amount of celebration nutrition, and departed after exactly 2 hours. It had been perfect. It had been proper. It had been realized with uncomfortable clarity, extremely boring. She began writing her report. She detailed every violation of festival protocol she had witnessed. Humans failed to maintain proper celebration boundaries. They consumed recreational substances without monitoring. They engaged in spontaneous activities with no safety review. They mixed age groups inappropriately. They created noise pollution that exceeded acceptable levels. They sometimes injured themselves through excessive enthusiasm and simply laughed it off. By every measure the Galactic Festival Authority used, human festivals were disasters. But at the bottom of her report added something she had never written before. She added a personal observation. In 300 years of festival inspection, she wrote, I have never witnessed beings who appeared to genuinely enjoy their celebrations the way humans do. I have seen satisfaction. I have seen contentment. I have never seen joy. I do not know if humans are celebrating correctly by our standards, but they are celebrating in a way that achieves something we may have forgotten exists. She sent the report to her supervisor, the high celebrant of the Galactic Festival Authority, and waited. The response came within hours. It was not what she expected. Officer, the message read, return to headquarters immediately. Bring detailed documentation of human festival practices. The Council of Celebration wishes to convene an emergency session. We need to understand what humans are doing differently. As her ship left Earth's orbit, looked back at the blue planet below. Somewhere down there, humans were probably celebrating something. Maybe a birthday, maybe a holiday, maybe just the fact that it was a particular day of their week. They were probably doing it all wrong by every official standard. And they were probably having the time of their lives. Part 2. The Council of Celebration had not convened an emergency session in 400 years. The last time had been when the crystalline joined the galactic community and needed special accommodations for their unique crystalline biology. Now, all 15 council members sat in the great chamber on station, waiting for to present her findings about humans. High Celebrant X stood at the center of the circular chamber. He was alike, his ceremonial robes marking his status as the highest authority on celebrations in the known galaxy. He had held this position for 800 years. In all that time, he had never questioned whether the GFA was doing things correctly. His report had changed that. "Begin the presentation," X announced. Activated the holographic display. Images of human festivals filled the chamber. The council members watched in silence as humans danced through the streets of, built impossible sculptures in the desert, threw colored powder at each other during Holi, and ran through the streets of Pamplona being chased by large earth animals called bulls. "This is chaos," council member said. She was from the Methodical Collective, a species that planned everything down to the molecular level. "How do they maintain safety? How do they ensure all participants receive equal celebration opportunities?" "They do not," replied. "Humans do not appear to believe festivals require those things." "But the regulations clearly state," another council member began. "Humans wrote their own regulations," interrupted. "Or rather, they wrote very few regulations at all. Most human festivals have only basic safety rules. Beyond that, participants are free to celebrate however they wish." The hologram shifted to show footage from a human wedding. Guests ate, drank, danced, and celebrated with no apparent schedule. Some people danced wildly while others sat and talked. Some ate large amounts while others barely touched their food. Everyone did what they wanted. "But how do they ensure optimal celebration efficiency?" asked a council member from the efficiency-focused, a species obsessed with maximizing output from every activity. Hesitated. "They do not measure celebration efficiency. They measure something else. They call it happiness." The council chamber fell silent. Happiness was a known concept, of course. All species experienced positive emotions. But the idea that happiness itself was the goal, rather than proper protocol execution, was foreign to most council members. High Celebrant X had been watching the presentations with increasing interest. Now he stood and walked closer to the holographic display. He watched humans at a music festival, jumping and dancing to rhythmic sounds, their faces showing pure joy. "How long have we been organizing festivals?" X asked quietly. "The Galactic Festival Authority has existed for 3,214 years, answered. "And in all that time, have you ever attended a festival where participants looked like this?" He gestured at the humans on the display. Did not answer immediately. She thought of every festival she had ever attended, the proper ceremonies, the precise light shows, the scheduled merriment blocks of the gaseous collective, all perfect, all protocol compliant, all utterly devoid of whatever emotion she saw on these human faces. "No," she finally said, "never." X turned to address the full council. "I propose we invite humans to teach us their methods, not to replace our protocols, but to understand what we may have lost in our pursuit of perfection." The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Half the council thought humans were dangerously chaotic and should be prohibited from joining the GFA until they learned proper celebration techniques. The other half was curious about what humans might teach them. In the end, X made an executive decision. He would personally visit Earth and experience human festivals firsthand. If he deemed their methods valuable, the GFA would invite human consultants to help reform galactic celebration practices. 3 weeks later, X stood in New Orleans during something humans called Mardi Gras. Stood beside him, having volunteered to serve as his guide. "Explain the purpose of those items," X said, pointing at the colorful beads humans wore around their necks. "They are called beads," explained. "They serve no practical function. Humans throw them from elevated platforms and other humans try to catch them. Catching beads is considered fortunate." "But what is their value?" "They have no monetary value. They are made of cheap materials. Their value is purely emotional. Humans enjoy collecting them." X watched as a human caught a string of beads and celebrated as if they had won a great prize. The beads were worth essentially nothing. The humans' joy was real. A parade passed by, humans dancing and playing music on mobile platforms. X noticed that some dancers were highly skilled while others were clumsy and awkward, yet everyone cheered for them equally. No one seemed to care about technical perfection. A human woman approached them. She was elderly, wearing bright colors and multiple strings of beads. "Y'all look lost," she said with a warm smile. "First time at Mardi Gras." "First time at any human festival," X replied. "Well then, sugar, you need to loosen up. Here." She reached up and placed a string of purple and gold beads around X's neck. "Now you're official." Before X could respond, she was gone, disappearing back into the crowd. He looked down at the beads. They were cheap plastic. They served no function, and somehow, receiving them as a gift from a stranger made him feel something he had not felt in centuries. Welcomed. Over the next week, X experienced 7 different human festivals. He attended a small-town harvest festival where locals celebrated their agricultural success with food, music, and games. He went to a birthday party for a 5-year-old human child, where adults wore silly hats and sang a traditional song. He visited a college campus where young humans celebrated the end of their academic term by engaging in extremely questionable decision-making. At each festival, X took careful notes, but more importantly, he paid attention to how he felt. At the child's birthday party, watching the young human's face light up when they saw their cake, X felt a warmth in his thorax he did not recognize. At the harvest festival, when locals insisted he try their homemade food and welcomed him as an honored guest, he felt a connection he had never experienced at formal diplomatic functions. On his final day on Earth, X sat with Ambassador, humanity's representative to the Galactic Council. She had been assigned to host him during his visit. "Your festivals violate approximately 347 GFA regulations," X said. Ambassador smiled. "I'm aware. We received quite a detailed report from Officer. Are you here to tell us we cannot join the GFA?" "No," X said. "I am here to ask if you would be willing to teach us." Smile faded, replaced by confusion. "Teach you what?" X gestured at the window, where humans were visible going about their daily lives. How to have fun. How to celebrate in ways that create genuine happiness rather than merely checking boxes on a protocol list. How to be spontaneous and chaotic and joyful in the way humans are. Sat back in her chair, clearly surprised. "You want humanity to teach alien species how to party." "I want humanity to teach us what we have forgotten. We have spent thousands of years perfecting the science of celebration, but we have lost the art of it. We can plan festivals with perfect efficiency, but we cannot create moments of true joy. You can." Was quiet for a moment, processing this request. Then she smiled again, broader this time. "Hi, celebrant, I think I know exactly who can help you." 3 days later, X found himself in a meeting room on station with the most unusual group of consultants ever assembled by the Galactic Festival Authority. There was Mama, an event planner from Lagos who had organized celebrations for everyone from small family gatherings to presidential inaugurations. There was Jean, a parade organizer from New Orleans with 50 years of experience. There was a young woman from Mumbai who ran one of Earth's most popular party-planning social media channels. And there were 3 college students who insisted their expertise in what they called absolutely legendary ragers was essential to the mission. "Okay," Mama said, looking around the sterile, perfectly organized council chamber. "First problem, this space is too clean. Nobody has fun in a space this clean. We need to mess it up a little." And so began the education of the Galactic Festival Authority. Part 3. The first species to request human help with their celebrations were the crystalline. They were beings of living diamond, beautiful and perfect in every way. Their festivals consisted of precise light refraction displays where thousands of positioned themselves at exact coordinates to create geometric patterns of reflected light. Each festival followed mathematical formulas perfected over centuries. Mama watched a recording of an festival and shook her head. "It's beautiful," she said, "but where's the joy?" The representative, a being named, rotated slightly to face her. They had no faces as humans understood them, but they could direct their attention by angling their crystalline bodies. Joy is irrelevant. The precision is what matters. Each festival demonstrates our mathematical and artistic perfection. "But does anyone actually enjoy it?" asked one of the college students. Was silent for a moment. "Enjoyment is not the purpose. Perfection is the purpose." Leaned forward. "What if I told you that perfection might be your problem? What if the best celebrations are the ones where things go wrong?" The representative made a sound like tinkling glass, which the translator interpreted as confusion. "That makes no logical sense. Why would we intentionally make things wrong?" "Because," Jean said with a grin, "that's when the magic happens." The humans convinced to let them organize a festival on there. The council was skeptical, but agreed to a small experimental celebration involving only a few hundred participants. The humans arrived on with equipment they had never seen: music players with unpredictable sound algorithms, decorations that would move and shift randomly, and most shocking to the absolutely no schedule. "When does the festival begin?" asked. "When people show up," said. "And when does it end?" "When people go home." This answer seemed to cause the representative significant distress. "But how will we coordinate? How will we ensure optimal positioning?" Mama put a gentle hand on this crystalline surface. "Honey, you just let it happen." The festival began at what the humans called whenever. Started arriving, each one clearly uncomfortable with the lack of assigned positions. The humans had set up their sound system, and music began playing. Not the precise, mathematically perfect tones they usually used, but something messier. Something with rhythm and bass and unexpected beats. At first, nothing happened. They stood in perfect formation, waiting for instructions that never came. Then one of the college students, a young man named Jake, started dancing. He danced badly, with no coordination or skill, just moving to the music in whatever way felt good. And moved slightly closer, fascinated. The humans had learned that could vibrate their crystalline structures to create sound. Jake called out to the, "Come on, try it. Just move however you want." They hesitated, then began to vibrate slightly. Not in the controlled, precise way they did for their light shows. Just a simple vibration in response to the music. Another joined in. Then another. Changed the music, adding more bass, and they began vibrating at different frequencies. The light they refracted was no longer geometric and perfect. It was chaotic, random, unpredictable. It was beautiful. Then Mama, executing a plan she had discussed with the other humans, accidentally knocked over a decorative stand. It fell into another decoration, which fell into a light projector, which started spinning and projecting light in wild, uncontrolled patterns across the gathered. For a moment there was silence. The humans held their breath, worried they had gone too far. Then one began vibrating rapidly, their crystalline structure pulsing with light in a completely uncontrolled way. The translator struggled for a moment before settling on a word: laughter. Another started laughing, then another. Soon, hundreds of were vibrating chaotically, their perfect crystalline formations completely destroyed, light refracting in every direction with no pattern or purpose. They were dancing, really dancing, for the first time in their civilization's history. Stood at the edge of the chaos, processing what was happening. Then, slowly, they moved into the crowd and began to vibrate. Not the precise vibrations of ceremony, just simple, joyful resonance with the music and the moment. News of the festival spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Other species began requesting human consultants. The collective, a hive-minded species that had always celebrated as a single unified entity, learned about individuality at a masquerade ball where each member wore a different costume and played a different role. The telepathic, who could read each other's thoughts and therefore never experienced surprises, learned the joy of surprise parties when humans taught them elaborate mental diversion techniques, involving intentionally thinking about boring topics to hide the truth. The gaseous collective learned about dancing from Jean, who taught them to move their gas clouds to music in ways that had no purpose except joy. The Silicon Builders learned about games from and the other college students, discovering that competition could be fun rather than just evaluative. Found herself promoted to Director of Human Integration, a newly created position. Her job was to coordinate between human consultants and species requesting help. She worked closely with Ambassador, and over time they became friends. Real friends, not just diplomatic colleagues. One day asked the question, "Do you ever celebrate now, just for fun, not for work?" Thought about it. Last week, I completed a project report ahead of schedule. I went to the station's recreation level and consumed 3 different flavored beverages I had never tried. I did not need them for nutrition. I just wanted to try them. Smiled, "That's a good start, but I think you need more practice. Come with me." Took to a small gathering of humans and aliens who had started meeting weekly on station. They called it the Random Friday Club, because it met on Fridays for no particular reason except that Friday seemed like a good day to celebrate. There were about 20 beings there, maybe half human, half various other species. They were playing a human game called charades, which made absolutely no logical sense but was somehow hilarious. Sat down and watched. Then someone invited her to play. She was terrible at it. She made no sense when she acted out her assigned phrase. Everyone laughed, including her, and it felt wonderful. 2 years after X's first visit to Earth, the Galactic Festival Authority announced the first festival of all worlds. Every member species was invited to a massive celebration on Joyous Landing, a small moon that had been transformed into a festival ground. The only rule, insisted upon by humans and approved by the GFA Council, was that there would be no rules. Millions of beings from across the galaxy arrived. They set up their light displays, but this time they included intentional mistakes that made patterns more interesting. The collective came as individuals, each wearing costumes that expressed personal preferences they had never been allowed to have before. The organized games and competitions. The humans brought food from Earth, music, and an infectious enthusiasm that spread to everyone they met. X stood on a platform overlooking the celebration with Ambassador beside him. Below them, species that had never interacted informally before were dancing together, eating together, playing games together. A crystalline was teaching a gaseous collective member how to vibrate in time with music. A group of humans had convinced some of the methodical collective to try something called karaoke, which involved singing badly on purpose. "We were so proud of our 3,000 years of festival expertise," X said quietly. "We thought we had perfected celebration, but we had only perfected the appearance of celebration. We lost the soul of it." "You didn't lose it," said. "You just forgot where to look for it, but you remembered. That's the important part." Approached them, wearing what humans called a party hat that served no function except to look silly. "Hi, celebrant, there is a situation requiring your attention." X tensed. "What kind of situation?" The and the plasma dancers accidentally mixed their festival effects. There is a cloud of ionized gas refracting light in ways that violate 7 different safety protocols. It is creating patterns across the sky that are technically unauthorized. She paused. "It is also the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, and everyone is gathering to watch it. I told them you would approve the safety exception." X looked then down at the festival below. He could hear music, laughter, joy, real joy, the kind that could not be scheduled or regulated or perfected. "Approved," he said. And stop filing exception reports. That is an order. If something makes people happy and is not genuinely dangerous, then it is approved automatically. His eyes widened, but the regulations require. The regulations are changing, starting now. The festival continued for 3 days with no planned end time. It simply went on until beings were exhausted, happy, and full of memories they would treasure. On the final night, there was a spontaneous closing ceremony that happened because someone suggested it might be nice to have one. X stood before the assembled crowd and spoke. 3,000 years ago, the Galactic Festival Authority was created to bring order to celebrations across the galaxy. We established protocols, regulations, and standards. We made festivals efficient, safe, and proper. And in doing so, we forgot the most important thing. Festivals are not about efficiency. They are about joy. The crowd cheered, thousands of different species making thousands of different sounds of approval. Humans taught us something precious. They taught us that perfection is the enemy of celebration. They taught us that mistakes can be beautiful. They taught us that the best moments are the ones we do not plan. And most importantly, they taught us that festivals are not about following rules. They are about creating happiness. He held up a small object. It was a string of cheap plastic beads, purple and gold, the ones given to him by an elderly woman in New Orleans 2 years ago. He still carried them everywhere. The Galactic Festival Authority is hereby reformed. We are no longer a regulatory body. We are an educational one. Our mission is not to enforce celebration, but to spread joy. And our teachers are the humans who showed us what we had forgotten. Ambassador stood, and X gestured her forward. She joined him on the platform, and he presented her with the eternal flame of festivity, a holographic flame that represented the highest honor the GFA could bestow. This honor is not just for Ambassador, X continued. It is for all humans who gave us permission to be imperfect, permission to be spontaneous, and permission to simply enjoy existence. Accepted the honor with tears in her eyes. Then she did something very human. She immediately turned and handed the flame to Mama, who was standing in the crowd. This woman taught half the galaxy how to party. She deserves this more than any diplomat. Mama came forward, also crying, and accepted the flame. Then she turned to Gene and passed it to him. You taught them about rhythm and soul. Gene passed it to. You taught them about social connection. Passed it to the college students. You taught them to not take everything so seriously. The flame was passed through the crowd, human to alien to human to alien, each person adding their own moment of recognition and gratitude. It moved through the collective, the gaseous beings, the silicon builders, and hundreds of other species who had learned to celebrate in new ways. Finally, the flame came to, who stood holding it with trembling appendages. She looked at the holographic fire, then at the crowd of beings from across the galaxy, then at the humans who had changed everything. I was so certain that chaos was wrong, she said, her voice amplified across the gathering. I spent 300 years enforcing regulations, ensuring everything was perfect and proper, and I never once felt what I feel right now. Gratitude, joy, connection. She looked directly at Mama. Thank you for teaching us that the best festivals are the ones where we forget to follow the rules. As beings departed to there over the following days, they carried with them new knowledge. The knowledge that fun could not be optimized or scheduled, that the best memories came from unexpected moments, that mistakes were opportunities for laughter, that perfection was less valuable than authenticity. The Galactic Festival Authority added a new charter, written collaboratively by beings from dozens of species, but inspired by human philosophy. It had only 3 rules. Rule 1, there are no rules. Rule 2, if you are not having fun, you are doing it wrong. Rule 3, share the joy. 5 years later, attended a festival on her. It was the annual efficiency celebration, the same festival she had found so boring before visiting Earth. But things had changed. The festival still started at the appointed time, but there was no appointed end time. There were still celebration nutrition provisions, but now there were also messy foods from a dozen different worlds. There were still designated activities, but there were also spontaneous moments of chaos and laughter. Watched her own people learning to dance badly, to sing off-key, to celebrate imperfectly. She saw young playing human games and old trying exotic foods. She saw her species, so proud of their precision and order, finally learning to let go and have fun. A young approached her. "Director, I am studying to become a festival officer. Is it true that you once tried to have humans banned from the GFA?" Laughed, a sound that still felt new and wonderful even after 5 years of practice. "Yes, it is true. It was the worst recommendation I ever made and the best mistake of my career." "Why was it a mistake?" "Because," said, "the humans taught me that making mistakes is not a failure. It is an opportunity to learn something new. And what I learned was that life is too short to spend it celebrating perfectly. Life should be spent celebrating joyfully." Above them, fireworks exploded in the sky. Not perfectly timed, mathematically optimized fireworks. Messy, chaotic, beautiful human-style fireworks that went off whenever someone felt like lighting them. Some fizzled. Some exploded in unexpected colors. Some malfunctioned in ways that were somehow more beautiful than if they had worked correctly. And across 847 member worlds of the Galactic Council, beings who had forgotten how to celebrate were remembering that festivals were not about protocols or perfection. They were about coming together, making memories and sharing joy. All because humanity had shown the galaxy something that should have been obvious all along, that the point of celebrating was not to do it right. The point was simply to do it, with full hearts and open minds and a willingness to dance badly, sing loudly, and laugh at yourself when things went wrong. The galaxy was learning to have fun, and it was the humans, chaotic and imperfect and wonderful, who had taught them how.